on Mr. Michael Furman.
I neglected during the break. I was told that the webcast folks are having a little difficulty with hearing you. So I was asked to remind you to make sure you've got your mic up. And I think Ms. Hackemeyer, when you're up there as well, I think the webcast folks are having a little trouble.
Hopefully, can you hear that okay?
I don't know so much me hearing. I think it's the people that are broadcasting it. So I got thumbs up right now.
Okay.
So.
You swear the witness, please.
Turn around here.
Yes, sir.
You solemnly swear to the testimony that you're about to give the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. You state your name, sir.
Michael L. Furman.
Sir, what is your present position?
I am the interim superintendent for the DeKalb School District.
And when did you assume that position?
It happened so quickly, about 8 days ago. This is my 9th day as the interim superintendent.
Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the State Board briefly a little bit about your background, sir?
I was born and raised, I often say in Athens, Georgia, but that's not accurate. I was born near Athens, in Clark County. Anybody from Georgia knows it means I grew up in the country. I attended the public schools of Athens, Clark County. For 11 years, I went to the all segregated schools in Athens. In my senior year, which was the fall of 1970, I relocated, transferred to what became Clark Central High School. So we consolidated the all-black schools with predominantly white schools. And I was a member of the historic class. We were the first consolidated graduating class from Clark Central High School. I then attended Payne College in Augusta, Georgia, where I majored in philosophy and religion. My mother sent me to college to be a preacher. That didn't work out. And I graduated with a degree, though, and then on to the University of South Carolina, where I received a Juris Doctorate degree, passed the Georgia Bar, worked as assistant city attorney for the city of Athens. I started my own law practice in December 1979. Was elected to the Georgia House of Representatives in 1986. The history of that, I became the first African American from Clark County to be elected to the Georgia General Assembly since Reconstruction. And upon my election, I was the only state representative in the South elected from a majority white district. I served 6 years in the Georgia House of Representatives, served as chairman of the Georgia Legislative Black Caucus. 1992, I ran for the U.S. Congress in the 4th Congressional District. It was a 4-person race. I finished 5th. Just behind the ultimate winner, Ms. Cindy McKinney. After that, I returned to political exile in Athens, returned to practice of law. In 1994, former Governor Zell Miller called and left a message on my phone that he wanted me to come and take over the leadership of the Department of Family and Children Services and transform welfare in the state of Georgia. And once I got myself up off the floor and called him back, he placed that responsibility on me to transform an agency that for decades had been mired in dependency. And to transform the agency, I developed a strategy called Work First. And during my tenure there, 3 years, we helped 90,000 Georgia families move from welfare to work. We implemented training and educational opportunities for mothers and fathers and focused on helping young people understand the value of work and delayed gratification. After 3 years at DFACS, I then became a lecturer at Carl Vinson Institute of Government, University of Georgia, and I traveled around the country helping other states understand the challenges it took to implement cultural and organizational change in their human service agencies. In 1998, I sought the position of the Labor Commissioner of the state of Georgia. And in that election, myself and my friend Thurber Baker, who was here earlier, we became the first African American in history of Georgia elected to a statewide constitutional office. I was re-elected 3 terms as labor commissioner. I led the agency along with the help of 4,000 other dedicated men and women through the greatest economic downturn since the Great Depression. In 2010, I ran for the U.S. Senate. I was a Democratic nominee. I was defeated by a man that I've often admired, Mr. Donna Edler. I then returned back to the practice of law with the law firm of Butler, Wood and Crowell, with offices in Columbus and Atlanta. And just 2 weeks ago, I was sitting home watching TV, and I received a telephone call asking if I would like to come and serve as interim superintendent for the DeKalb County Schools. I told the young lady, give me 30 minutes. And I told my wife, she said, you get ready to do what? And I thought about it. She said, look, after all these years of public service, in the private sector, here's an opportunity for you to at least do something for the family and yourself. And I thought about it. Finally, I decided that nothing could be more important than literally standing in the gap in DeKalb County and helping to lead this school district beyond the problems that it is facing, and to ensure that 99,000 children have access to a quality education. And I can tell you today, stand here, Madam Chair, and all the members of this board, I am honored, I'm privileged, and I feel truly blessed to have been given this opportunity.
Now, since you assumed the helm, have you had the opportunity, either before or since, to review the SACS report that came out in December of 2012?
Absolutely.
Have you had the opportunity to meet with and deal with the various issues with anyone in your staff that were raised in the SACS report?
Well, yes, especially the members of the board. I was very versed in it and had detailed discussion during the brief negotiation period about the issues that we are facing, and more importantly, what steps we were prepared to take to address the issues that have been raised.
Now, you recognize that regardless of whether the SACS report is perfect or not, that there are issues that are having to be addressed.
Yes, sir.
And they're genuine.
Yes.
You heard Dr. Elgart testify this morning that primarily those issues deal with leadership and governance, and as that leadership and governance reflects upon resource usage. Have you already begun work in addressing those issues with the board and with staff?
Yes. And the first thing I did prior to accepting the position, I met with the board and I stated to them, unless you are willing to support me and authorize me to make fundamental change in this district, then I'm not your guy. And I asked each and every member of the board, and they can attest to it. First, I asked them, are you committed to making the tough decisions that must be made in order to address, and by the way, the SACS findings, really they are symptoms of problems. And I think one of the mistakes has been we're looking at SACS as those findings as the problem. But my experience has taught me working in public agencies that oftentimes the problems are much deeper. It's when your kids get a fever, the fever may be a symptom of a more serious disease. And so what I said then was, number one, what is your level of commitment? And I asked each board member, and they each stated without reservation that they were committed to doing whatever it took to address these problems, to restore our full accreditation, and to return the DeKalb School District to the elite position that it held for many decades. And the second question I posed was then, what is how much are you willing to sacrifice in order to achieve this goal? And they put no limitations on the sacrifice. Only after those two questions were answered did I commit myself to this position.
Did every single board member give you an affirmative response to each of those two commitments?
Yes.
Since you were selected, have you had the opportunity, in the midst of everything else you're trying to do, to spend time with this board?
Yes.
Considerable amount in a short period of time. Fair statement?
Yes. Not just in meetings, but on telephone calls late into the night. And we're gonna have to stop that if we continue working. But I've done it, yes.
I'm asking you to tell the ladies and gentlemen of the State Board, do you believe that you can work with each and every member that presently is on and has been elected to that board?
Yes, and I'll tell you why.
Please do.
My priority rests with the 99,000 students of the district. And one of the things I've learned in leadership training and opportunity is that you have to commit yourself to work with all types of people. And one of the unique things about a school board or any elected or appointed body, it is a diverse group with diverse experiences and interests and ideas and beliefs. But I think true leaders have the ability first to listen to those who may have opposing views, to learn from each and every person you engage with, and then use that knowledge to lead in a positive way. And I have absolutely no doubt, and it's not just the board, I'm committed to working with every stakeholder in DeKalb.
And you've already started that, have you not?
Yes, I met with the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce, and one of the things in the middle of the meeting, and I know the board members met with them too, but the gentleman who was chairing the meeting stopped the meeting and said, you know what? This is the first time we've ever talked to someone from the DeKalb County. And this is a very positive step forward. And then I met with, of course, the DeKalb delegation, Republicans and Democrats. I met with county commission. I met just yesterday with a parent council at Oak Grove Elementary School to make sure that they know that the lines of communication are open, that I'm willing to listen, to learn, and more importantly, what I told them, I have no fear, no doubt that we are going to be successful.
Now, I asked you if you could work with each member, and each member has committed to working with you, correct? Now let me ask you about the members' commitment, because that obviously is one of the things that has been problematic. Do you believe, from what you have seen, that this board is prepared to work with one another, from one end of the group to the other?
What I've seen is a sense of, I think what Donna Edler said, hope, not just with the board, but with teachers and parents in churches on Sunday. At the church I attended, the minister had teachers and administrators, and then I suggested, no, also ask the cooks and the bus drivers and the custodians. Under my administration, there will be no big eyes and little U's. You need great board members, you need great superintendents and great administrators. But one of the things I've learned is that if the buses don't run on time, and God forbid if the cooks don't cook, you can't have a progressive, successful school system. And the key to leadership is really just embracing the diversity that we have. And by the way, one of the things I've done over the last 2.5 years, I've worked with the Georgia School Boards Association. But I've also worked with School Boards Association from Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Tennessee. I met with school board members in Savannah, executive directors, to talk about the challenges that they are facing. And as frustrating and as difficult as these problems appear to us, they are tough, but they're not unique. They're the type of problems school board members face all over the nation.
Now, in looking at the SAC issues that have to be addressed, have you worked with staff as well as the board to try to determine what, if any, progress has been made to date and is being made in regards to meeting progress and constructive actions necessary so that in May, the school system will be advancing back towards accreditation.
But whenever I'm placed in a crisis management position, whether it's performing welfare or managing a large agency during an economic recession, the first thing I engage in is a baseline assessment. But there's a unique caveat to it. Deficit-driven strategies rarely succeed. Most leaders, when placed in positions, and most of those in the media and even those in general society, we tend to focus on deficit. What I prefer is inventory and assets. And then, once I determine the availability of assets, then I move to address deficit. So what I did initially was create a baseline as it relates to the SACS finding. What have we done? Who is in charge of doing it? What are the next steps to making sure, guaranteeing that come the end of May, we will have a game plan in place, and by December 31st, the probationary status will be removed from this district.
Now, have you gone over and has the board participated in looking at all of those things where they are today?
I presented the report, and I think one of our staff members will share it with the board later on, and they testified, but that's exactly what I did.
You came from the outside. You've read the SACS report. You've now worked with the staff and taken a look at what is going on and addressing those concerns that SACS presented. Have you found that a game plan is and has been put in place, and progress is and has been made in various areas to accomplish constructive gains?
Absolutely. That's why I called Dr. Elgart. And, you know, I'm old school. I will go and sit and speak and develop a relationship with individuals. I don't create impressions about people or institutions based on what other people tell me. I base my impression on what I perceive, what I gain, and what my understanding is. And I stated to him with no reservation that I was committed and that the district is committed to doing whatever it takes to resolve the issues that are incorporated in his plan.
Now, looking at the SACS report, there are a couple of things that jump out. There's the issue about the textbooks and the $12 million. Did it catch your eye?
Yes.
Did you address it?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, it caught my attention before I ever had any idea that I would ever be the interim superintendent for the DeKalb County Schools. It was a devastating fact that apparently, from what I read, that the district has set aside, I think, some $25 million to purchase school books for our children. And somehow, through mismanagement of commission or omission, that the books had not been purchased, and then there was no one available to determine what happened to the remaining $12 million that had not spent. So based on what I had heard, indirectly, the books had not been purchased, and then the money that had been set aside could not be documented in terms of where it went, who I was appropriate.
Standing here today, and we intend to do it for this board, are you satisfied that we can account for the books, account for the $12 million, and dot the i's and cross the t's?
Standing here today, and I think senior staff will present you with the evidence and documents to show that we can document where every book dressed today, and not just in which schools, but in which classroom, and we can document where every dime that was appropriated was either spent or redirected back into the budget.
So somehow, the information that was inside the SAC report on that does not match up with the facts.
And I don't know how or why, and
I'm not putting blame anywhere, but
I don't know what happened, but for some reason, the information, and if I could get it in 2 days, then the assumption is that persons who were in this position could have accessed the same information in a reasonable period of time.
all right. There was another issue that was jumping out, at least at some of us. I don't know if it jumped out at you. That if you read the report, it says that only 35% of the district basically had internet connection. Do you recall that part?
Yes.
Did it jump out?
Yes, it was an embarrassing revelation if it was true.
All right. And Have you dug into that since you've been?
Yes,
And is that fact correct?
no.
What is the truth as best you know it? And we're going to present evidence on that.
The details will be presented later, but I think the evidence will show that the DeKalb School District is a leader in the state of Georgia in providing internet connectivity in our class.
And do we have 100% connectivity?
Yes,
And from what you have been able to determine, did we have 100% connectivity at the time that SAC was issuing that report?
of course, that was back, I would suspect so, but I can't
Okay,
verify.
all right, well, we'll do that through the other ways. But today, you know that we do.
Yes,
Some of it's wireless, some of it's by line, but we're moving towards all wireless, correct?
correct.
Okay? Now, let's go back to the board for a moment. Have you had frank conversations with this board regarding the need to work cooperatively together without yielding one's honestly held opinions?
Yes,
I want to ask you, have you had frank, I'm talking really frank conversations? As frank as they can be?
conversation we've had, and I guess I can contribute this to one of our board members. Well, I can't. Yes, and what we've been able to recognize and understand, and I want to attribute to him, that there are many, many influences and issues. And there has been, as the SACS report states, in my school, my neighborhood, my district culture in this district. And what we are beginning, or my political party culture in the district. To be honest, all of this plays out in any setting of adults and elected officials, not just in Georgia, but all over this country. Well, one of the more revelations yesterday, we engaged in whole board training at the Georgia School Boards Association that was arranged at short notice because I reached out to my friend Sis Henry and my senior staff reached out. And one of the revelations that came out of the sessions yesterday was that districts are there to determine how you are elected, but it does not define who you represent.
And who do you represent? Who do you as superintendent represent?
I represent all the children, all the stakeholders, the parents, stakeholders, the taxpayers of DeKalb County.
What about each of the board members, regardless of district?
Well, and it's unique because I have been elected by a district in the House of Representatives. The late Tom Murphy explained something to me, and I didn't get it at first. He said you were elected from a district, but you are a state representative. So, and even with board members who are appointed, you are appointed from a district, but you really represent the entire state of Georgia. But that is not an easy concept to understand. The second thing, and it was a great aha moment, was that under state law as it exists today, school board members are treated differently than any other elected official. During my tenure as the Commissioner of Labor, I fielded calls and emails and letters from elected officials, Republican and Democrat, all day, every day. That was just what I did. That's just part of good old Georgia politics. But state law has changed as it relates only to school board members. And having worked with school board members all across the state of Georgia and in other states, it is not generally known or specifically understood how Georgia law is unique from any other real estate as it relates to school board members. Things that you could do as a legislator or city councilman or county commissioner, you are not able to do under current law as a school board member. But I'm telling you, because I work with school boards all over the state, it is not generally or specifically understood that way.
This board, are you satisfied they understand that their obligations are county-wide, system-wide?
We've all, and we'll be, I'm not gonna say, oh, I waved the magic wand and 10 years, 5 years worth of fussing and fighting and clawing and scratching just disappeared, and the school board and the superintendent will go out in the woods and light a campfire and say, "Kumbaya." That ain't what I'm saying. What I am saying is that we recognize the seriousness of this moment. And it's not just about the school board. What's hanging in the balance is the future economic and growth and prosperity of the entire county of DeKalb.
And you believe our board members recognize all of that?
Yes, because, and one thing that our current chair said to me is that, Michael, you don't mince words. You say it and you call it as you see it, and you are a serious man for a serious job. And that's why I'm standing here today, because I'm a serious man trying to do a serious job.
Do you believe you can do that job, advance this district forward, out of probation, back to full accreditation with this board?
I think that's a distraction. I'll be honest with you. I think that's a distraction. The whole notion of, the answer is yes, of course, but we got to pivot right now and begin to focus on student achievement. We're spending this day, like I spent most of my day, discussing governance issues or school board issues. What we need to do as quickly as possible to reduce the confusion and the divisiveness and the anger and the frustration is, as a county, as a district, move quickly to address that. I'm convinced that we can get it done. You know, this school board, say what you will, they made a pretty courageous, brave decision. They hired me to be the superintendent. It really was. And I compliment them for it, right? But that to me shows I'll keep out of the corner. But it shows to me that they recognize that this is a serious moment in the history of our school district, and we just can't continue to do the status quo. That we had to really look at this problem with fresh eyes, with a fresh perspective, and as Ms. Jester told me yesterday, what we really need right now is someone who has the willingness and the skill sets to bring disparate groups together, whether it's in North DeKalb, South DeKalb, Republican and Democrat, conservative or progressive. What we have to do now is focus on one common goal, which is educating our children.
You talked about needing to focus right now. If this state school board were to not, at least at the moment, not recommend removal of these board members, do you believe y'all can do that and progress to fulfill the requirements that SACS wants fulfilled and to move the district forward for the benefit of the children?
Mr. Wilson, I don't just believe it, I know. I've staked literally a 30-year reputation, personally, on the fact that we can do it. I spent years building a reputation as being someone who was honest, that I operated with a sense of integrity and purpose. And we will not fail. If given the opportunity to do what we have really a unique opportunity to do, which is to create a model urban school district that is extremely diverse, racially and economically and politically, and to focus our attention at a critical time in the history of public education on showing not just other school districts who may be in trouble, will be in trouble, or it might just be kind of middling in between, how to go from maybe bad to good and good to great. That's the goal.
Is there anything in particular at the moment you would like to ask of this state school board as the interim superintendent for the DeKalb School System?
Well, the same thing I asked of the parents yesterday, and I know 3 of them I talked to at lunch, maybe 4 are here today. And what I asked them, I said, well, you don't know me. I'm not gonna ask you to trust me because we really don't have any prior history together. But give me the chance, at least a chance to succeed or a chance to fail. Give me the chance that Sachs is offering the school district in DeKalb County. Sachs will be back at the end of May. What Dr. Elgart told me privately and what he testified to today, he said, Mike, when I come back, I want to see a plan of action. And by December 31st, when you heard it, I want to see substantive progress. I said, thank you, and I committed to him that it will be done. And all we're really asking, with all the things that may have occurred, and I also told the parents yesterday, and you can't blame me for everything that went wrong over the last 10 years. Although some parents wanted to do it anyway. But what I did say is, I am responsible for fixing everything that's wrong the day I raised my hand and said, I'm responsible. I walked the farm. Give me the opportunity to do the job.
And do you want them to give this board the opportunity to do it with you, to fix whatever is wrong?
Well, I'm sworn, so I have to tell the truth. The issue really, ladies and gentlemen, of this board, and people say, well, you advocating for this board, and I know Mr. Wilson is trying to get me to say that. But let me tell you what the reality is the way I see it. And one of the issues that we face in public education, in DeKalb, in Georgia, in your community, is that there is serious mistrust between different racial, cultural, economic, and political constituencies. We understand that, and it's real. In many parts of our state, when you use the term public education, it's often a euphemism for race. I see this as an opportunity for not just DeKalb, but for Georgia to finally get it right. For Georgia to finally get it right. I told you that I was the first consolidated graduating class at Clark Central High School. That was some, I guess, 42 years ago. We've come a long way, and I have friends and classmates, and we have we've learned. But guess what? At our 40th high school reunion, the black kids still have theirs, and the white kids still have theirs. 40 years later, right? If we are going to move public education forward, we're going to have to finish the unfinished business. So the divisiveness and the controversy is really an opportunity. And I see it happening on my board, right? Who is very diverse. And I have seen them evolve just in a short period of time. I've seen them become more honest. I've seen them begin to recognize the value of looking beyond your district and to understand the importance of all the children. And as I said yesterday, it's what I look at and call enlightened self-interest. We're all self-interest. See, and people are interested in their neighborhood, in their school, in their children. We're all self-interested. But what we are advocating for is enlightened self-interest. When you begin to become interested in the educational careers of other people's children. Once you become enlightened, you will understand the value of going beyond district, neighborhood, or community.
And you said you saw them begin to be honest about that.
Yeah.
Have you, in the 8 days since you've been here, witnessed with your leadership far more openness and discussion among those board members? Honest discussion.
Yes, and really, I've heard apologies. But some of it we thought we understood, but we just didn't know. This is a tough game. This is a tough game. I'm telling you, it's a very tough game. You all know that if you deal with your constituents, this is a tough game. And I wish I could tell you I was born this way. I evolved this way. I told you, I got elected. I was the first African American, but the first 2 times I ran, I lost in that district. I won the 3rd time. And the first 2 times I was lost because I only campaigned in black neighborhoods, even though I was in a majority white district. Because people have comfort zones. And what we will do, not just on the board, but we got to do it in the school, we have to do it in the community. One of the things I said to the parent, one of the parents said, well, I like my school board member It's just the other ones I don't like. You want me to get rid of them, right? But the point is, I said, well, you know, a district line is a legal fiction. You can go down on the south side and actually campaign and especially send a check to help elect someone. It's not just about my district. If I have a chance, if you all will grant me that, we'll get this job done. And there will be some value, I think, quite frankly, in us demonstrating to the people who have elected and appointed us that we can grow and we can evolve. So that's what's going to have to happen in the parent council. That's what's going to have to happen in the neighborhood. We won't be able to change the parents. We won't be able to change the principals and the students. But what we can all do is evolve and grow.
Ms. Hackemeyer may have some questions.
Yes.
All right.
You heard that before?
Yeah. I used to be a lawyer.
Just a couple of quick questions. First, you discussed briefly about the textbook issue. And I wondered, in the few days you've been on the job, have you had an opportunity to review the audit that was done by KPMG? And you're well aware that that was asked for by your predecessor, Cheryl Atkinson, and that was delivered on December 7th after the SACS visit. And isn't it true that one of the issues that she asked them to look into was the disbursement of $23 million for a line of credit for textbooks?
Correct.
So the superintendent had concerns at that time, and presumably the board did too. They voted probably to hire this firm to do this audit about those textbooks. And so those issues were outstanding when the accreditation team was there in October of 2012.
That's correct.
Did you also notice when you reviewed that audit that some of that textbook money went to pay for prior year textbook purchases?
I don't recall that specific fact.
Okay. Do you recall that some of the money was used to pay legal fees and not to purchase textbooks? Okay, well, I'm going to ask you to turn to Exhibit 17. Because I'm not sure who else is going to testify, Mr. Turner.
Well, my CFO would testify, as well as the lady who was actually in charge of the purchase and assignment and the distribution of the textbook. What I would prefer, if you give me the opportunity, we have a document to share with the board, as well as to allow her to speak, because it all occurred before I came.
I understand.
And I have 8 days of experience.
If your attorney will state in his place he does intend to call the CFO,
I do.
then I'll reserve those questions to that time.
Yes, we do intend to call.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Thurman?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes. I would have questions from the board, Mr. Rice.
Michael, I've admired you for a long time, and I remember working with you when you were labor commissioner. When you were asked about the board and are they capable of working with you, there was some degree of hesitation. And I'm just wondering, given your track record, if you ever run for president, call me. Given your track record, to me, you're sort of not the question. It's the question of the board members, and I would expand that to say, are you going to have better odds with the new board or the same board?
That's right. Great question. Let me tell you why I hesitate. If the law that has brought us to this point today is operational, this is a hypothesis, I'm projecting, I hope it doesn't happen. If a recommendation is made to remove 6, remove but not unelect, and if the governor moves and appoints, and of course the courts don't enjoin, then what I will have in DeKalb County is I'll have 15 board members. Right? 6 appointed, and 9, 3 still serving, and 6 others elected by the people, and the law does not prevent them from advocating, from doing any and everything they might desire is appropriate as it relates to public education. I can manage 9, 15 is issue. And so what the reason I said, and the other thing, and I prayed on this. I prayed on it. The optics and the realities are very, very tragic. We all know it. And the last thing we need right now is more divisiveness in our county. The last thing we need is more political rancor in our county. I'll get it done because it is the quickest, most effective way for me as a superintendent to pivot from this day and focus totally on renewing full accreditation and focusing on academic performance. That's why I say, let's end the madness, let me go to work, and let me get the job done. That's all I'm asking. And if you give me the chance, I'm convinced that this board has already stated that they're willing to give me the chance. They've gone out on a limb and hired a guy as superintendent who never taught one class in his life. That is a huge, huge risk for them. And I know that they will not allow me to fail in this job.
I had one follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
How much time are you willing to commit to do this job?
I have a 12-month contract, and if the first 8 days are any indication, I'm going to be working 24/7. I'm not being facetious. I'm all in on this one. This is a chance of a lifetime. It really is. And people look at downstairs in the cafeteria, folks coming by and they're shaking their heads, and we feel sorry for you. But
So you think it can be solved in 12 months?
no, I think we can lay the foundation. And one thing I said to the board, you will have to hire a permanent, long-term superintendent. But one of the problems, the reason we've had so much turnover and churning, is that we need to clear the deck for a professional to come in, and it's done in corporate America all the time. I'm not trying to win a long-term contract. I'm there to make the tough decisions, and the ones that others might hesitate to make. I'm there to clear the deck, to deal with some of the issues that have festered for decades that you all have heard, and then to go back to my law firm. I'm on a temporary unpaid leave, and as soon as I can get this job done, hopefully in terms of laying the foundation, and I'm returning to the private
But
sector.
this is a full-time, 12-month job for you.
Yes, sir.
Other questions from the,
Well, I had one. I like to focus on the positives, as you said. Can you tell me, and you mentioned something about, I love to put the assets out there. Let me tell you what I think my assets will be.
Okay.
Tell me what you think the positive things are that we can sort of focus on and take a look at, nuggets.
Students. We have great students. Outstanding students. And by the way, these students have done absolutely nothing to place their accreditation at risk. And if we lose accreditation, we will be punishing them for something they took no part in. Students. Yesterday at Oak Grove, and someone said, oh, you took some tough questions. Well, when I was sitting there, I saw 200 committed, dedicated parents who cared enough to come and sit there and engage me in this process. I didn't see angry parents. I saw loving, focused, dedicated parents. We got teachers who haven't had a raise in 5 years, but continue to literally answer the call to teach day in and day out. We have crossing guards and bus drivers and cafeteria workers and security guards. We have people who want to do what's right. they are more tired of this than the public is, because they live in it every day. And they come up to me and they say, well, please, Mike, turn it around, and we're happy to do it. Those are the assets, I think.
All right, I heard students, parents, and teachers. Can I include in that a unified board?
Yes, and great question. Well, for DeKalb, we had a 7-2 vote last night. And for us, that's an accomplishment. But that was, and we talked about it, because when I came, everything was 4-3-2, right? And we were known all over DeKalb as 4-3-2. And the way we got the 7-2, and you don't have to have unanimity, that's not necessary. But the way we got it, we had to begin to talk and to trust. And one of the things we talked about in Gwinnett, you have dysfunction when you have distrust. And the thing I said is, when you lay in that foundation of trust, the challenge is who will place the first brick on the floor. And oftentimes in situations like this, we're waiting for the other person to make the move. So you have to initiate the trust. And it's early, but I see progress. I've been in these situations before. We got a major, I think I'm very excited about the plan we put together to look at governance that Dr. Elgart talked about. And by the way, governance is not just the Board of Education. We've had a systems failure of governance, not just at the board, but up and down the organization, as well as with the stakeholders. That's why we've not had conversations with the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, because that's a governance, with the DeKalb Chamber of Commerce, but that's a governance issue. So we have a plan in place. We've gotten the foremost expert in governance, Mr. B.I., who will lead the effort. And I'm excited, and I think it's going to pay huge dividends for us going forward.
Mr. Thurman or Commissioner Thurman or Dr. Thurman?
People just call me Mike.
Okay,
that
first off,
never changes.
I agree it was a courageous decision for them to hire you. I like your comment after that. But a couple things. You were there 8 days, and in 2 days you figured out where all the money went for these books. How come in 4 months the board couldn't? It's a serious question.
Great question. Leadership. You got to have leadership.
And in 8 days, you figured out that they have connectivity and they've got a good system with regard to their connectivity. But in 4 months, they couldn't figure that out.
Hey, well, but no, let me hear me honest.
You figured it out in 8 days. They did that. But in the last 4 months, since October, when the report was out, there was no answer to that.
Honestly, it appears to me that they were not given complete and accurate information.
But you resolved it. I mean, and I'm not disputing the fact that, and we're going to hear testimony from, I'm sure, other folks to back up the fact that you resolved it in 8 days. Okay? I think that's a great thing. That's 2 of these more than 40 indicators in the SACS report that have been addressed. Now, you agree that, I think you agree, that most of these things in the SACS report need to be addressed, that they were legitimate issues.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, you get down to the weeds, and, you know, okay, maybe that money wasn't spent here, it was spent there, and counting books and all that, okay, fine. But you generally agree that not in any one of those more than 40 indicators does it say or mention the superintendent. Not in any one of them that I could see. Not in any one of them. And I might have missed it. But I tried to read over them again. So my concern is that I believe you are all in, and I believe someone of your caliber is necessary and absolutely needed. I'm not fully convinced that one person can fix this problem, considering the fact that it is a culture of lack of leadership in government for more than just 2 years, for more than 10. I don't think anybody can dispute that. I mean, you can dispute the minutiae of that maybe, but you can't really dispute that. And I'm just wondering if, you know, with your motivation and your leadership skills that are very obvious, one person is going to change something that couldn't have been done in 10 years?
Great question. And I think it was Dr. King who once said that one man with courage can make a majority. I can't do it alone, but I can serve as a catalyst that will help to build the coalition that will get it done. And you are correct. But the board, I was able to get it done, to at least uncover this in 8 days. But the people, great leaders understand something. And this is my father, he was an illiterate man, he could not read or write. And he told me the key is you got to know what you don't know and then find someone who does, right? What this board did was apparently realize they didn't know and they found someone who did. And you have to get credit for that because at least they had the good sense to know what they didn't know and then find someone who does.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Campbell? I'd like to piggyback on Mr. Burnett, what he said. I really admire the fact that they brought you in to make a change at the head and to try to get everything arranged in order to be a positive influence, not just on this county, but on the state as a whole. Me being on the state board, I am supposed to oversee and look toward the advantages of all the students of the state of Georgia. But also me being a part and a product of DeKalb County. Unlike you, I was raised in DeKalb County from Jim Cherry all the way through Chamblee High School. And it was a premier district in the state and also in the state, and also the United States. And I would like to see that caliber of education and concern for the students of DeKalb County put back in the place where it's supposed to be, on the students, on their achievement, and on their future. So I just wanted to say I'm glad that they decided to bring you on and that you are willing to put forth 24/7 effort in trying to get this county back to where it's supposed to be and also bringing in a new chair. And it is my hope and prayer as well that you can have a full board to be behind you and with you in accomplishing what needs to be done for all residents of DeKalb County as well as the state.
Thank you so much. And of course, I look forward to working with you, having been a proud graduate. One of the things, Martha Zala, some of y'all may know, she's a conservative radio talk show host. And she called me last Saturday at home and she reminded me that she graduated from Columbia High School. And what her goal, she had a suggestion that we need to start an alumni association of graduates from DeKalb County. Because DeKalb went through a major demographic shift, which is really what every major urban county is or will be going through. And she thought it would be important to reconnect those graduates who graduated from the DeKalb school and gone on and come back. But let me tell you something else she pointed out, and that's why it's so important to listen. She recalled that when she was graduated from Columbia High School, her high school, I think she said, was 95% white. Right? And she said 5 years later, it was 95% African American. But what the aha moment was, she said, but Mike, let me tell you, before the demographic change, we used to raise Cain because we felt that the folk in North DeKalb were getting more money, more resources than the people in South DeKalb. Now, fast forward to current time, it's always viewed with a racial lens. But in fact, this problem predated the demographic shift. Those are the type of realities that we have to come to grips with, and you know that, and so that we can begin to coalesce and understand. Mr. Elgart stated that academic performance has stagnated, and we're going to focus on increasing that to get it back to when you graduated from Chamblee High School. But what we fail to understand, and because I was in welfare reform, is that when the city of Atlanta divested itself of public housing, those families, many on low income, migrated primarily to Clayton and DeKalb. So all of a sudden, and see, these test scores and academic performance, we like to put it in racial context, but it's really more about economics and income. So all of a sudden, we have a much larger population of low-income students, which when you integrate their performance into the overall performance, it looks as if, what, we're not progressing. But in fact, we were educating a very different population of students. We have the largest refugee population of students than any other county in the state. True. With young people who cannot speak the English language. So what I'm saying is that you have to really drill down, be deliberative, and be innovative, and use your resources. And we have you a great resource, and I'm going to call on you to help us work through these issues. And I'm repeating myself, but all I need is an opportunity to do it. Just give me, even if you don't believe I can succeed, give me the opportunity to fail. All I need is the opportunity.
Mr. Roy?
I want to challenge you on something you said.
Okay.
Early in your speech, you were referring to the Sachs comments, and you said that a lot of it is symptoms. I don't believe that. I believe they're outcomes. They're not symptoms, they're outcomes. And there is a difference. Some poor governance, some lack of leadership, some financial mismanagement, and the reasons that we're here today. And to me, in my decision-making process, is we've got a lot of evidence, and whether all of it's true or all of it's not, that's why we're here today. But really the question for us today is, what are you going to do different? What are you going to solve it? And should we give this board more time to fix it? And I've got some very specific questions, and you mentioned the CFO's coming, and I'll save those for the CFO. But I just wanted to point out that that's a clear difference with me, and maybe get your thoughts on symptoms versus outcomes.
That's a great question. And the reason I said it is, for instance, oftentimes things are not as they appear to be, especially when you're dealing with large bureaucracy, particularly in the public sector. And I can only speak to it from a historical perspective. And the best one I can think of is welfare reform, right? Whereby we sought to move people from welfare to employment. And that was a school of thought that the people were either untrained or lazy or just didn't really care about being independent and self-sufficient. Once I got into the organizational structure of that agency, I found out something that was really telling. That in the county offices, and I had 159, that jobs in the offices were distributed based on the number of welfare recipients you had in your county. The more welfare recipients you had, the more jobs you could have distributed. The symptom was we had too many people dependent. But the problem was that we had a system that basically encouraged and in many ways mandated that dependence. So, and I get a lot of credit for having done it, but really what turned the system around, I sent out a memo and I taught, and I said, look, we will no longer distribute jobs based on the number of cases. In fact, we're going to reward officers that reduce their population. 60% of the population got involved out the door with it. So I am interested. Yeah, Madam Chair, that's right. Whatever get measured, get done. That's right. So I'm interested to see what happened, and Mr. Elgart said 10 years ago, where you had this world-class public school system that began to deteriorate. I'm not sure yet exactly what it is. One thing I said to parents, I'm not rash. I'm very deliberative in my thought. And see, when folks have said, go in and shoot all the people at the central office, get them out, come out. But one of the things, this is a delicate operation, and I don't want to exercise a part that I might need. But once you become clear as to what the real problems are, then move forward right. I'm not certain, I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't have the complete answer to that. But I can tell you this, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to decentralize resources and authority. Sometimes huge bureaucracies are very ponderous. We have area superintendents. We're going to empower our area superintendents and our principals to make decisions and to do and to make and to educate our children. You can't do it from a central place in a district where you got 105 schools and 99,000 students and 15,000 employees. And I think that's part of the problem. You're trying to run something that's too large and too massive and from a centralized platform, and really we need to be decentralized. And the second point is that you have many student populations in the category. You have some very wealthy communities, you have middle class communities, you have some very impoverished communities. One size cannot fit all. But the goal has to be the same, which is to educate all our children. But I appreciate your thought, and I'll think about it, and we'll talk about it some more. It's insightful.
I'm going to recognize Ms. Beckman. She has a question. Ms. Beckman, you want to ask your question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Welcome, Commissioner Thurman.
Good afternoon.
We met some time ago down in McIntosh County, and I had invited you to come and give an inspiration before this board a number of years ago. It's good to see you again.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I've been down on Sapelo and Hog Hammer over the last year working with the residents there.
All right. Well, I have 3 questions for you, if you could indulge me. The first one is, you began your introduction by telling us you were at home watching television and you received a phone call. And I think that there's probably a process for a superintendent search, and that strikes me as just a little unusual. And I'm wondering if you could divulge who the phone call was from.
It was a person representing the board called and asked if I was interested. See, we're in a crisis. We're in a crisis. And some of the traditional processes in this crisis, actually, if the house is on fire, you have to respond. And it was an attorney, I think, from the school board. I didn't recognize the lady's name.
Okay. Question number 2. Does this 12-month contract you have with DeKalb speak at all to the issue of whether or not this board recommends removal and the governor's potential subsequent action? For example, does your contract end if that process were to happen?
No.
It does not speak to that issue?
It doesn't speak to it. It's not contemplated by the document.
All right, so I'm not an attorney, and obviously you are, but that would mean then that you're on for 12 months regardless.
But yes or no, I was brought here by this board. I have no knowledge or expectation that if another board is appointed, whether or not they will need or want my services.
All right, I understand your answer, thank you. And the third question then, I believe I've heard perhaps through news reports that there is a contract for $150,000 between this board and your law firm. I wonder if you could speak to that.
That's not true. My law firm is Butler, Wooten, and Fryhoff. We're a civil trial practice law firm. They thought I was crazy leaving the law firm. They do no work with any public entity in any way whatsoever.
So I believe what I read was that there was a arrangement for them to perhaps provide in some manner board training to this board.
No, ma'am. Not Butler, Wooten, and Fryhoff. No, ma'am. It's not true.
Okay, the way you stipulated that, is there some other answer to this question? Is this just a misrepresentation of the facts, or?
Well, if someone stated that my former law firm where I serve as counsel has been contracted to do anything, not just with this board or with any public agency, that would not be true.
Okay. Madam Chair, that's the extent of my questions. Thank you.
Mr. Wright.
Michael, I hear 3 reoccurring themes I hear race, I hear economic issues, and I hear culture. And would you comment on those and what you're going to have to do to bring those together successfully?
Thank you. To do what I've done throughout my adult life, which is try to bridge the gaps, to help people rise above the things that divide us, to help us overcome our fears, and to understand our common needs and goals and opportunities. I'm uniquely qualified for this moment, at this time, for this job. And it's about DeKalb, but really it's about public education all over the state. Our issues have been magnified because of the findings and fights and the quarrels. But you and I know that the issues that I'm facing are the issues that educators and parents and school board members are facing all over this state. What I hope to do is to develop a model that other districts who may not have engaged these challenges can use to help them progress and help them develop a better system. I reached out to the superintendent of Gwinnett, and I told him and asked him, will you be my mentor? I reached out to the State Superintendents Association, Kurt Garrett and I talked. I can't tell you how many different people from how many different walks of life. I got a call from a high-ranking corporate executive at Coca-Cola, a call from a high-ranking executive at Coke, formerly GP, a call from Pepsi-Cola Corporation. These people saying, we want to help. They see an opportunity to do something that, quite frankly, has not occurred anywhere else in this state. It is a unique moment if we embrace it. If we move from courthouse and the lawyers and the hearing and pivot quickly and focus on the student, focus on academic excellence. We can do this. And we may never get this chance again. You know, sometimes your blessing comes in disguise.
So you see these things happening all over Georgia. You're proposing to make this a test case, in effect, for dealing with these new demographic realities, economic pressures, cultural divides.
Yes, sir. It's happening in Gwinnett. It hasn't happened yet, but it will. It's happening in all the counties in Rockdale. It's happening in Douglas. Getting an increasing number of Hispanic and Asian kids and black kids and white kids, and they are conservatives and progressives and Tea Party and Coffee Party. And what we can do.
What did you say, coffee?
Did I say Coffee Party?
Is that what cream?
Is that right? Well, if we can do this, we can prove that it can be done. See, the problem is no one has yet to prove that it can be done. So what we've done is we retreated into our comfort zone. We have not allowed ourselves to engage. No one has been willing to put their career, their reputation on the line in order to affect it. But it's interesting, one man with courage, people are offering to help.
You need a job that bad?
I want this job. This is the job of a lifetime. I told him, I would never want to be defects director unless it was doing welfare reform. I would never want to be labor commissioner unless we were in the midst of the greatest recession since the Great Depression. I would never dream that wouldn't be given the opportunity to be the superintendent of DeKalb unless they were facing the greatest crisis in the history of the district. That's where I want to be. That's the opportunity I want to take.
Any other questions for Mr. Thurman? Mr. Winter?
Superintendent, do you have the authority and policies in place that you need to lead as superintendent?
Not totally, no, not yet.
What would a general summary of missing pieces be?
Well, on March 15th, we incorporated in my contract, I will present to the board a 90-day plan with a more detailed projection as to what needs to be done and who needs to do it in order to move forward in addressing SACs and going beyond SACs to moving the system back to a place of prominence and excellence. One of the things We gotta baseline the budget. We have to get our house in order. That is embarrassing. These level findings, I've been in state government. This is absolutely embarrassing. It's unacceptable, and we are not going to allow that to continue as long as I'm there as superintendent.
Appreciating those appear to be action, and I asked about authority and policy.
I have their commitment. The policies, there may be some I would like to bring forward, others I would like to eliminate. I'm not at this point, 8 days in, really with an expansive understanding. What I have, and since they are here and you can help me, I have the commitment from the board to provide me with the support and the commitment needed in order to affect the changes that you suggest. And I agree with you, they need to be done.
Has the board in open session approved all contracts for either consultants or legal services in excess of $100,000 that they have entered into since you became superintendent?
Yes.
Have you read the 2011 audit and management letter?
No, I have not.
Have you read the December 7th, 2012 KPMG report?
I was briefed up.
Brief, but have not read.
No, I have not.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other questions from Mr. Thurman? Mr. Thurman, I have watched you from afar as well. We've been closer than you think. I've been in the crowds many times when you spoke to leadership board folks. If there is anybody that can do this job, I think you can. You are uniquely qualified to close gaps, build bridges, and change cultures. I encourage you, regardless of what board you're working with, if you're working on a model that can be used across the state, which I think the state board would agree is needed, I encourage you to keep a diary. Because your journey will be a very significant one for others to follow. And if you're there for 12 months or however long you're there, keep some kind of diary so others can follow. You know, it can be a private diary. I just encourage you to do that so others can learn from what you experience. And you'll forget it if you don't write it down. Not question your mental capacity.
No,
and then you're going to get it behind you.
Because you're old.
My only question is, you mentioned you want to turn away from the legal issues. Let me ask you, did the board consult you before they determined that they wanted to file a temporary restraining order against this hearing process?
In executive session, yes.
And since it was in executive session, I won't ask you what your comments were. Any other questions from Mr. Thurman? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Donna Edler? County swear the witness. You state your name, please.
Donna Edler.
Settle, are you a member of the DeKalb County? Be sure and talk to this microphone. When did you become a member of the board?
I was sworn in January 3rd, 2011.
So you've been on board 2 years.
Yes.
Now, you have read the SACS report.
Yes.
You're aware of the issues this board is facing.
Yes.
And you understand why the board is here today.
Yes.
Do you believe this board has made mistakes in the past?
Yes.
Now, you've been here for 2 years, so you were not on prior to that at any other time. Okay. Do you believe that this board, as it's presently constituted, can work together?
Yes, I do.
And do you believe you've seen changes in this board just since Mr. Thurman came on board?
Yes, I have.
Do you believe you've seen more honest dialogue?
Yes.
Do you believe you've seen more respectful treatment one to the other? Have you seen what you believe is more effort to build relationships to try to come to common understanding?
Yes.
The your tenure on the board, you're only halfway through a term, correct?
Correct.
Many of the problems that were in the report predate your arrival,
Yes.
but some of them come with the time period you've been there, correct?
Yes.
Do you believe that you also elected new chair and vice chair, correct?
Yes.
Do you believe that that new vice chair and chair can work collaboratively as a leader for this board with the superintendent?
Yes, I do.
Do you believe that your two new leaders on the board can provide positive leadership to the group as a whole?
Yes.
Is there anything you would like to say to this board in regards to their consideration that they're going to have to make today?
Yes. Bill?
Could you speak up a little bit, please?
Yes. Board Chair, thank you for this opportunity to speak before you today. I want you to know that as a relatively new board member of 2 years, I want you to know that